Today's agenda, I'm going to explain a little bit about drives, folders, and files. We're going to talk about naming files, which is one of the best things you can do to organize yourself on your computer, no matter you're using a Mac or a Windows computer. And then we're going to look and explore Finder and some of the different ways it works. One of the first things to be aware of is files are data. Okay, so you've got data like text, which is a file like Microsoft Word or other types of word processing. You've got images that are files like photos. Videos are digital files. Audio are files. And then you might have some special files that are created by a specific application like Photoshop or other types of applications that create their own unique type of file that is meant to be opened only in the application itself. So there's all types of files, and you may have more files on your computer than you're aware of, but each of these files is a piece of data that exists on your computer. So any questions about a file? Files contain information. Okay. They take up space. The files are what uses up memory on your computer. So you've got your operating system, it's a file. You've got applications that are files. You've got data that are created by applications and things you download. Those are all files that are on your computer that take up space, they take up data, and finding the one file you're looking for is the important thing that people really tend to focus on. Okay, so disk drives, think of disk drives like a file cabinet. The naming scheme for files and data on computers came a lot from office environments. Computers came into offices and businesses and organizations first, things like spreadsheets, things like word processors, and they were used by businesses and organizations that could afford them and bring them in before consumers got a hold of them. And a lot of the common terminology that exists for naming things came from the way we worked with paper, oddly enough. So think of your disk drive that's in your computer as a file cabinet. It holds files, okay? They're not any organization. When you get your computer, it comes with a few files that are supplied by the manufacturer, like the operating system and some things that make it easy to get started using it. But it's just a file cabinet, and that's all the disk drive is a file cabinet. Now, some of you may have more than one file cabinet. If you have more than one file cabinet, you are having the equivalent of having like multiple disk drives. So you might have a disk drive built into your computer. You might have an external drive that you have plugged into your computer with a cable. You might have a cloud drive that's a storage cabinet in the cloud that you have to go over the internet to get to. But these are all like file cabinets. They're just different locations. So just like you think visually, oh, I got a file cabinet next to my desk. I got a file cabinet in my other room. I've got a file cabinet in the garage. I've got a file cabinet in the storage unit that I have to drive to. You might have file, cabinets in different locations, and you might have disk drives in different locations other than on your built-in one that comes with your PC. So files are stored in file cabinets, right? But to make it easy to find them, we want to be able to organize things. So you could have data, you could have text, you can have audio. These are all digital files. When we talk about digital, we're talking about the ability to take a piece of information and put it into bits and bytes that can be stored on a computer disk in some way. And so these drives are going to hold our files. So where you have your files is going to be on the drive, aka the storage cabinet that you use. So if you use the built-in storage cabinet on your computer, all your files are going to be there. If you use the storage cabinet in the cloud, your files are going to be in the cloud. Sometimes they can be synchronized. It just depends on the cloud software you use. but it's possible to have files in different file cabinets. Now, some people are really, really obsessive about organization, and some people are very casual about it. But a folder has a purpose. A folder organizes files, and it makes it easier to find them. You've got Pendaflex, you've got tabbed folders, you've got all types of things, and folders are used for paper and documents and other types of pieces of information in order to organize files and make them easier to find. If you had a file cabinet without any labels on the folders, it would be pretty hard. You'd have to sort through them unless they were color-coded in some way. But if you start putting labels on your folders, it makes it easier for you to organize your files. And so putting files into folders makes it easier to find them inside a file cabinet, just like with paper, and putting files inside of folders on your computer makes it easier to find them on your disk drive when you're using your computer. So we'll talk about some organization schemes that might help. Now, one of the things about folders is they're electronic. They're not physical. But just like you can have a paper folder that holds subfolders inside of it, you can create subfolders, but there's actually no limit to how many subfolders you can create on a computer because you're not using physical space. Folders don't take up any space by themselves. Folders are like an empty container that will hold files. When you put files inside the folders, then they start to use up space. It's the files that take up the space, storage space, not the folders themselves. So feel free to use as many folders as you want to organize information. They don't use up any resources, any space on your computer, and it makes it easier for you to find things, just like with a paper, file in a file folder in a file cabinet. You would want to be able to find things from, say, 2019 pretty easily. So you might put a label on a folder and call it 2019. Or you might put a set of files that you need to archive or make, older. You don't need to get them very often. You might put them in storage in your garage or a storage cabinet, and you could label them old, and you could just put all your old stuff or stuff that's older than 7 or 8 or 9 years, in those types of files. Or you could say you just want to save everything and you want to organize it by the place or the project you were doing. Some people organize things by projects. Some people organize things by places. So folders can be named, and that helps you find the files that are related to that folder. So naming things that helps trigger your memory is going to be helpful. So organizing files into folders is probably one of the best tips I can give people in terms of keeping their data organized. You can keep a file outside of a folder just loose on the drive, just like you could have papers on top of a file cabinet, and they're not organized in any file, but they're on the file cabinet. So you go to the file cabinet and you look through the stacks, and eventually you find what you're looking for. Or you can say, I'm going to put this in a folder, and I'm going to put a folder with a label in my file cabinet. I'm going to organize that piece of paper or those set of papers that have to do with that year, that project, that topic, whatever it is you want to do. Okay, so organizing files into folders will help you find things a lot better. Now, naming files is the other aspect of organizing files. So in a file, you have something called a full name. The full name consists of what's to the left of the dot and what's to the right of the dot. To the left of the dot is a name that Windows and Macs give you the ability to use about 255 characters to name a file. You can use numbers and letters, a few special characters, but I recommend you just stick with numbers and letters because that'll give you virtually everything you need. The file name to the part to the right is called an extension. So the part to the right being the extension is used by the application that creates the file. You should not change that unless you really know what you're doing. Yes, Reg.
You note here that there's 255 characters in the name. Is that true for PCs as well as Macs?
Yes, it is. It might be like 254. I mean, if you really need, there might be 256. It might be a few characters off, but it's virtually the same for Windows and Macs. Now, I don't know how many people have ever used a 255 character file name or not. Most people don't need to. Most of the time, 15, 20, characters, 30 characters is enough. And I'll show you some things that when I download videos from Zoom, they create a file name for me automatically. And I'll show you their file name. They're pretty long, but sometimes you might. But when you create a file, and you can change the file name to the left of the dot, you can change it by renaming the file. When it says rename a file, this is your choice. Files are like sheets of paper. You can take a sheet of paper and put it anywhere. You can put it on top of your desk. You can put it on a kitchen table. You can take it with you. You can fold it and put it in your pocket. Files can be taken anywhere. And folders are just places to hold files. Using descriptive file names like a year, a month, a date might be helpful if you're trying to organize things by when you needed them or when you created them or when they were appropriate. Useful for financial information, but also for keeping track of things. Just like we have file systems that we might use in paper files, like alphabetical for names, but is it alphabetical by first name or alphabetical by last name? So if you start creating names and you say, well, I'm going to call this file Bob Cohen, and then you change your mind and then you're going to call it Cohen Bob. If you change your naming scheme while you are working with files, it might be a little more difficult to organize them. But if you put all of your files that had to do with Bob Cohen in one folder that said Bob Cohen, you just have to go to that folder. And then if you said, okay, Bob Cohen, copy of passport or PowerPoint presentation or whatever it is that you're creating and using, giving it a name is really, really helpful. And there's, just like in any kind of office environment, there are, ways to organize files. So even within a folder, you might have a folder named 23. You might have things organized in that folder by month, or you might have things organized by subject. You might have, like, say, receipts or taxes or expenses or auto or car or repair or warranties. So you can organize your files in a lot of creative ways. Just think of them as just another sheet of paper or document that you might use. Okay, so we've looked at file names, and we're going to look now at Finder. Finder is an application or utility that is built into your Mac. It shows you and displays your disk drives, your folders, and your files. Finder is there to display drives, folders, and files for you. It's this little happy face icon. There are some tools in Finder, and we're going to spend more time exploring these because there's areas called a sidebar, there's a menu, there's search tools, there's different views, and much, much, much more. And we're going to kind of explore those and see how it changes how files appear depending on what we use and how we use it, which can be helpful for finding a file and viewing them when you want to. Now, interestingly enough, Windows has virtually the same tools, so it's just they're different in the way you use them. So let me open up Finder, and it's going to be whatever I was last looking at. So usually what happens is when you look at Finder, it shows you recent. So it's showing you recents now. Typically, when you open Finder for the first time, it'll take you to recents, and your folders on files are going to look entirely different than mine, but you'll see some things that are common. Okay, I have an iCloud drive up on top, And these are things that are kept in iCloud. They could be on my Mac as well, but they're definitely in iCloud. This portion here on the left is called the sidebar. And it lists places, it lists drives like iCloud Drive, my Macintosh hard drive. I have a MacBook Pro, which is my device, and then it lists the drive on my Macintosh. It lists a Seagate backup. And sometimes when things are syncing, you'll see a little rotating dial there. That means that backup is actually in process. Macs do a backup in what's called a background task when you're using Time Machine. So if you take a USB accessory drive, plug it into your Mac, and tell your Mac you wanted to use it as Time Machine, it will create a backup of your entire Mac for you, and it'll update it periodically through the day, so you won't really lose much information ever at all. I have OneDrive, which is my Microsoft 365 drive. I have a network, but I don't have much on my network. I does think my printer is a device, but it really isn't hard drive. It's just a device. And then I'll have recents, desktops, me, and I am the user on this Mac. So generally, when you want to find things on your Mac, you would look under your name, and then it would show you all the files that are associated with your name. Downloads are where all of your download files end up. So if I do a graphic on Canva and I want to create a visual, or I want to create something for a graphic, I can download it. Now, you'll notice that as I clicked on this, on the right-hand side, their photo actually shows up. That's because I have preview set up on my Finder, so that whenever I look at a file, and I can drag and drop these, I can drag these separators by clicking on my mouse to make these bigger or smaller. And when I click on a file, it will show me a preview of that file so that I don't have to open up every file to take a look at it. Preview is a great tool. Okay, so when you want to do preview, you need to go to the menu. So when we go to the menu, there's a 3 dots, and you can choose the 3 dots, and you can change your view. You can show preview options, and by clicking on that menu, it'll bring up options for that tool if you want to. So there's a lot of ways to get information that you can view and manage on here. So we're going to take a look at some of these to give a better idea. Let me go. There's applications. Will end up, this is where all of your applications on your Mac are listed. You can see AirDrop, that's usually included here if you want to move things between users. So these are all tools that are indicated on your sidebar. Now, one thing I'll tell you is that I recommend you keep almost everything on your Mac in your Documents folder and create a subfolder for it. Okay, to create a subfolder, you can go to the menu and do it, or you can use a keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to bring up my whole screen, which is going to show a lot of information. I'm looking at my Documents folder on the sidebar. If I go to Downloads, it'll show me the Downloads folder on my sidebar. And if I look at Documents and I choose to look at another folder here, I can go to click on one and it'll change the information that I might want to look at. So if I go to Zoom, which is a folder that's created automatically, Zoom creates a folder every time you host a Zoom meeting, and it creates a set of documents for that folder. So you can see, and here's the name that Zoom gives it, 2023. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit for you so you can see it better. 2023-12-11, 10.31.56, when the meeting started, organizing files with Finder on Mac OS. Now, what I'm doing on my keyboard, in case you're wondering, I'm hitting the Option, Command, and equal key, and the Option, Command, and minus key. That lets me enlarge and reduce the size of information here. But you can see how having them all organized by date makes it pretty easy to look at Find One by date if you're interested. These don't have much information in them. They don't take up a lot of space. But if I wanted to find out how much space they took up, I could right-click one, and I can go to look at information about it. By right-clicking with your mouse, you can get info on that file. And this will show me that here's the file. This is a folder that I'm looking at. It tells me it's 126 bytes, for 2 items, where it's located. This is telling me the path that's on my Macintosh hard drive, under the user Bob. I'm the user, in Bob's Documents folder in the Zoom subfolder in Documents, when it was created and when it was last modified. Okay, so it gives me the ability by right-clicking to get a lot of information on a folder or a file. Now, if I see these little disclosure buttons here, if I click on that, it opens up what is in the folder. It's a saved chat from the meeting, is what's saved. It's a .txt file. It doesn't have any date or time on it. It uses underscores to separate some of the words, which is permissible on a Mac and Windows. And it gives me the ability to see information on that very quickly and organize it. So if I want to get back to anything on the sidebar, I could just click on Downloads and I'll see Downloads. Now, you'll notice that there's a couple of things that look a little bit odd here. Is that I've got some things like college files and stock photos here on my sidebar. Okay, they are actually contained in the Documents folder. I just dragged them over. So if I want to create a new folder, I'm going to go up to my File menu up on top, create a new folder, and it creates an untitled folder in this list. And I'll call it Test Folder. Okay. All right. On a Mac, if you go to File, New Folder, it'll let you create a new folder. If you ask it to create a new Smart folder, it will ask you to identify items based on characteristics you might want to have in them. It doesn't move or duplicate the items at all. It just creates essentially pointers to those items. So whenever you put the name of something in say a folder title or a file title, it'll create a Smart folder for you. So it's using a little bit of computing intelligence there for you. I have this test folder in my document. So if I go to look at recents, I have to go and say, where did I put that test folder? I have to remember to go to Documents. But I can take that test folder and I can click on it and I can drag it into my sidebar and I can position it. You can see the little indicator line here. I can indicate where I want to have it anywhere. And now it's automatically in my sidebar. So it gives me a quick way to navigate and do that. If I right click on it, I can remove it from the sidebar. So I can show it in the enclosing folder and just change a view, or I can rename it, or I can even add it to the dock. The dock is that row of icons along the bottom. So if I add it to my dock and I go down now to my dock, here's this test folder in the lower right, and I can open it right away without having to go to my Finder at all if I want to. So it's another way to get to things quickly. Now, I don't have much in here, so what would be nice would be to put a few things in here. So let me open up a new Finder window. I use this all the time. So when you go to the menu up on top and you go to File and you go to New Finder Window, it opens up a new Finder window. It'll automatically go to recents. That's okay. So what I want to do now is I want to put these two windows side by side on my Mac screen. So I go to the green dot, I click on it, and I say tile window to the left of screen. And then I click on this other Finder window to the right of the screen, and I have two Finder windows side by side. So now what I can do is I have test folder open on the left, but I have recents open on the right. So let me take this Shutterstock photo and just drag it over here to test folder, and it'll move it for me. If I want to take this something pages, words, doc, AI, Zoom, summary, I can just drag it. Okay, now I am copying these. I'm not moving them. So I'm able to copy and paste. They're still in recents. Recents is an indicator that shows where things are located. But I'm able to move things over and move them around just by dragging and dropping. If I go to stock photos, where I keep a lot of stock photos, I'm going to keep something for here. I can drag this over, and I can literally drag and drop things. Oh, I want to move this back over to stock photo. So having two windows open side by side gives you the ability to work with like a drawer in a file cabinet where you have different folders, and you can move things from one folder to another very easily just by having that drawer open. Makes it really easy to navigate that. Now, if I want to make these windows standard size, I just go up to any one of them and I click on the green screen here. So now I've got this test folder, and I've got some documents here that I can view in a different way. So dragging and dropping is one of the great things about Macs. Windows starts to do it now too, but Macs have always had drag and drop capability with a lot of tools and utilities that you may want to do. So if I wanted to drag this image to my desktop, I just drag it over here to my desktop and drop it, and now it's in a set of a collection of images that's been created on my desktop. If I want to take this one and drag it over to here, I can just drag it over into the folder from my desktop. So saving things on your desktop is not a bad thing to do, because you can always just drag and drop them into a folder when you get enough of them. Sometimes I don't know where stuff should be, which is a common, organization challenge. But, it's keeping things on your desktop for a little while is not a major issue, because then when you've got a folder that makes sense, you can put it in that folder. By the way, this was a cell tower that I asked Dolly to create standing in a cornfield. So not bad image, right? Okay, so let's take a look at some other things that are here on the top. Let's go to a folder I have on documents. Let's see if I've got, let's go to my OneDrive, okay, because I got a lot of things. Now, OneDrive and some other cloud drives will show you some things that might be helpful. So I use OneDrive a lot for most things I create in Microsoft. So I create something in Word or PowerPoint. I also am, doing all the videos, and you'll see a little cloud symbol here in this because it's a cloud drive. On my documents, there's no cloud symbol. So all of these files are stored on my system here. Okay, there's my test folder. I can always open that up and see what's inside if I want to, but I'm going to look at OneDrive for a minute here. Now, if I look at my folder, books, workbooks, and materials, I've got a couple of other folders here. So I've got some handouts that I have, some PDFs, other things, and OneDrive and some other tools will show you that sometimes these files are shared, and sometimes these files are on the cloud, and sometimes these files are just synced with your local device. So if I take a look at a file here, let's go to cover artwork. So I don't know if I have anything in here, okay? And I go to look at this JPEG. You can see it's got a cloud symbol on the right. If I right click on it, OneDrive, because it's an app that installs on your Mac, gives me the ability to keep it on this device all the time if I want to. So if I click on always keep on this device, it'll download it to my device. Now, I may not do it right away, but you can see it has a different symbol here now than the cloud. So this file is kept on my device. iCloud synchronizes things automatically. So if you keep something in iCloud, like I use this Nikon manual here, for example, and if I want to have it available, it'll download it if I need to, but iCloud usually will synchronize and keep everything on your Mac that is capable of doing in iCloud unless you change a setting with iCloud. So this is always going to be available to you locally as well as on your iCloud drive itself. But anything that's in your documents is going to be kept in the file cabinet that's built into your computer, your disk drive on your computer. So one of the things that's helpful is the view that you have of your files. And these menu items on top give you the ability to change the view and organize them in different ways. Okay, you've got a share icon. If you find something that you want to share it, you can do that if you've got it in iCloud Drive. It gives you the ability to share. iCloud Drive is going to keep everything on your Mac and in iCloud. They're going to be synchronized automatically. I've got this test folder kind of messy here. I've just got a couple of things in it. Doesn't really look very well organized. I can organize it by using these icons along the top here. So I can show this view is icons. I can change the view to a list view by clicking on the list, and it gives me the name of the file, the date modified, the size, and the kind of file it is. Okay, I can change it to a set of rows. So if you're looking at something that has a lot of folders and subfolders here, having something in a set of rows can make sense because you can see I've got folders and subfolders and subfolders here. So you can have things organized that way. And sometimes some things will get created for you in folders. I can change the view to a full page, a full visual view here if I want to. And so these are just different ways of looking at your files in a particular folder that gives you some helpful tools that might make it easier for you to navigate and sort them out if you want to. There's a little tool here that lets you organize them by name, kind, application, date last opened, date added, date modified, date created, size, and tags. I don't use tags a lot. I tend to use a lot of names for my folders. But for example, if I wanted to create a tag for this, I could right click on the folder name in any view, and I can go to tags, and it'll give me the ability to assign a tag to this. I can create tags by color. I can create new tags if I want to. And as far as I know, there's no limit on the number of tags you can create, so that when you do a search, you could search for files by tag if you wanted to. I have a few under presentations that might have tags on them. You can see here's how a tag shows up. If you give it something a tag, it'll show up in a list of files. It'll create a tag column for you automatically. So there's another, you can find out all types of information. And then there's this little settings where you can organize and create new folders. You can actually create a new folder from your desktop by right-clicking. You can get info. You can open this up in a new tab. So a new tab gives you the ability to open up a tab on your Finder window, just like a browser. I could do the side-by-side view of two file Finder windows open at the same time, or I can look at different tabs. So if I'm working in one folder and I want to switch to another very quickly, it gives me the ability to switch quickly back and forth, just like a browser view would do. And so there are a lot of tools available here. Renaming is a matter of right-clicking or clicking renaming. If I want to click on rename, anytime I can rename a folder, I can rename a file name. Okay, so it just highlights this, and then I can use my cursor to modify it and change it if I want to. So lots of different tools that are available that allow you. I can do a quick look to get to it and do a few other things as well, or I can import from my iPhone or iPad. If I have something on my iPhone and I want to take a photo or scan a document, I have the ability to do these things at various times, depending on whether my Mac knows my iPhone is connected to it or not. If you click on the three dots, it'll give you the ability to create a new folder or open something in a new tab, open a new tab if you want to. And these tabs are independent. So if I'm on this tab and I go to recents, it'll show me recents in this tab, but it still keeps presentations here. Or if I want to go to test folder, it shows me test folder here, and it keeps the view of that test folder organized very easily for me. So if test folder, I want to change it to a list view. I prefer list view, but that's not for everybody. Some people prefer icons, but you can always switch and do it. If you want to organize these icons in a folder, if they're kind of like scattered, you can say, organize them, clean up, or sort, or show view options, obviously. But if I want to clean it up, I can clean it up and just do cleanup. One of the things I discovered that I want to show you before we go is in the menu, one of the most frustrating things, I was helping out somebody that said, I can't read my file names. The text is too small, right? So I went to figure out how to do this. So if you go to view in the menu, and you go to show view options, you'll bring up another menu. It's small. Let me see if I can make this bigger for us here. There we go. That's not too clear. Okay, so I have the ability now to change the text size of my system here. Okay, so you can see now I have my file names are bigger in the listing here. So just by using view and show view options, I can enlarge the text size. Can't go much larger than 16, unfortunately, but I think the standard that comes with a Mac is 12. So by going to 16, it's a little bit easier. And you can change how they're grouped. You can change what it shows in the view here, and you can give it a different information, change how you're viewing this view if you want to. If I go back to recents, it's going to only show recents in the standard text, but if I go to test folder, it's going to show it with the larger text view. So you can customize a few things depending on what folder you're looking at as well. So it gives you the ability to modify it and change that. Now, obviously, dragging stuff around, is easy. Doing things in a list view makes it easy for me to manage that I prefer. But I was looking for an old computer. I can drag this, even in this list, down to stock photos, and it's in stock photos. And I can see the folders and subfolders I've got in stock photos here as well. And I've named them, but they, to help me find them by name. So when I want to do a search, I can say, gee, I'd like to find a icon for Chrome. Gee, I can see everything that has the word Chrome in it on my Mac. First thing it does is search the Mac. Or I can say restrict the search to stock photos and show me images, files that have the word Chrome in it from stock photos. So search is a really powerful tool if you give your files names that will help you find them when you use search. Windows has search, other tools have search as well. So, but this is my Mac that is doing it. So even in OneDrive on my Mac, because I'm looking at OneDrive through Finder, it gives me the ability to search things here in my files here. So I can search here and I can type Chrome, and it'll give me the ability to, again, it'll search this Mac, or I can look at tech topic slides and videos, and it found anything that includes Chrome in it here. And it will show things by file size, but I can change it by clicking on the top here. I can click it by kind. I can click it to date last open. And I can change the way it sorts it in my view. So when I go to show view options, instead of viewing it by size, I can say, I want to view it by when it was last added or modified in some way. And that'll bring up a date modified column right here when I want to view it. So it gives me the ability to, I can sort by here, size, I can sort by name. It changes it right when I am changing these view options to whatever it is that I want to change it to. So I try and put dates in many of my folders at least, or topics in my folders. And I found that when you use dates, for me, it seems easier to use the year first, then the month, then the date, and always using 2 digits for the month and the day. So it's instead of like 5, it's 05. Instead of 9, it's 09. So everything lines up really nicely and makes it easy for me to organize and take a look at. When you open up Finder, you're opening up a window on your Mac screen. So that gives you the ability to manage that window and utilize and move it around, or you can, if you have a second screen or an iPad, you can use your iPad as a second screen, or you can cycle through windows if you want to. So it gives you the ability in Window to do that. Go gives you the ability to find certain types of folders that you might not normally go to. Okay, so it's a fast way to go to things if you're interested in going to something, rather than having to navigate all the way through Finder.